Hey, what's up? Back with another terrible looking video. I hope nobody's watching these because they're really ugly. I keep wanting to do them in the day, but then I only get ideas to talk about at night. So here we go. This is a reaction to Criminali's recent video on a Guardian article. I had some thoughts about the article too a while back, and I never got around to recording them. But I had one or two points to make. I think Criminali's article, of course, I mean his video, of course, I'll link to that. He covers a lot of the points if people are interested in the background of the article. I'll link to that too. There was a few articles a few months back about the Penguin Random House lawsuit where Penguin Random House ended up, might even been a year ago now, revealing some of their actual sales numbers, which were quite shocking to people. I remember one statistic that 50% of the books published by Penguin Random House sell less than 12 copies in a year. I mean, in their print run, which is shockingly low numbers, so keep that in mind. Basically, the Guardian article is about the sheer number of books that are being published today because of self-publishing, and also because of the hit-seeking nature of conventional publishing, where they're really looking for a blockbuster, so they put a lot of books out, and just commonly considered a very bad situation all around. No one really has any solutions for it. However, I have a slightly different take, a slightly more positive take, and I have to apologize to this content creator, this writing tube content creator, who made an excellent point in his video months ago. I can't find it anywhere. If it rings a bell with anybody, put it in the comments. But in this guy, it's not a channel I normally watch, so I don't know how to go back and find it. I searched for like 20 minutes, and you can also only go so far back in your history, but other people have probably made the similar observations before. But it centers around the concept of the slush pile. Now, for people who don't know, a slush pile is a publishing term for books that come in unsolicited to publishing houses, to magazine companies, to what few magazines that are left. Or to editor or to agents, for example, and they have to be sifted through in order to find books to publish by unknown authors. It's just a common industry term. What I don't know if people really realize is, or they've ever had occasion to think about, is how many books are submitted to publishing houses every year and that are rejected, or that are really not even looked at very closely. Or, I'm not talking about queries or proposals for books that people might want to write, or books that people haven't finished, but I'm just talking about finished manuscripts that people have written, poured their heart and soul into sometimes, or just dashed off drunkenly other times. But let's assume people did their hardest work on them, sent out to publishers, sent out to magazines. I know the science fiction magazines that most people aren't even aware of are even really in existence, but like Asimov's and Analog and the mystery counterparts, and Magazine of Fantasy and Science Fiction, and plus the mystery counterparts of Ellery Queen and Alfred Hitchcock's mystery magazines. These are 5 digests that were recently sold to new publishers, so they're still out there, but they're hard to find. People they don't have the kind of circulations they used to in the past, and I would say each one of them probably publishes between 5 and 10 stories per issue in a bi-monthly issue, and each one of them gets between 600 and 1,000 submissions a month. So out of in 2 months, they get 1,200. They published 6 of them. And the sci-fi magazines tend to publish longer stories, so it might even be fewer. It's a very, very small percentage of stuff that gets published, and that's just in the short fiction film. realm where you might think there's more competition because it's easier to write a short story, and a lot of beginning writers start out writing short stories, but actually many writers now go right to novels. I've known people, you probably have known people too. I knew this guy who had a relative who had an uncle who's a doctor who had written like 25 medical thrillers. Never had one published. He would write one every year, but they weren't well written. They read like technical manuals. According to my friend, they just read like they were focused. They're supposed to be thrillers, but they were really focused more on the cool medical things. The doctor, so they didn't have any commercial appeal. That didn't stop him from writing them. That didn't stop him from trying to publish them. So there are many cases of people like that who write a lot. Some people are maybe just writing. It used to be called was called writing for the drawer, where they just they're not interested in publication. But most people who write are interested in publication, I believe. They might write a book and then not be satisfied with it and think they're going to rewrite it at some other point. Work on it more at some other point and never get around to submitting it, or they may not know how to go about it, and they may just want to overcome the personal challenge of writing a book if they love books. But I think, and so even if you put all those people aside who never tried to sell their books or write their books, you've still got publishers receiving hundreds of thousands of manuscripts per year that are never published. Now, what this video that I can't remember the name of, I can't find anymore, made a point of, it was not a booktube person, but it was a how to write video. That's a whole different world of people trying to give you advice on how to self-publish or how to legacy publish, conventionally publish, whatever. There are so many videos like that, but this guy made a fantastic point, which I have never heard explained so succinctly anywhere else. He said that what happened in the last decade and a half, since about 2010, I think, and since it really took off, it goes in waves of self-publishing where it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Now it's very common for a top writer to be wholly self-published, like this woman who writes the Housemaid books, who's not even interested in, who sells millions and millions of copies, who's not even interested in a publishing contract. And I'm a little surprised sometimes that there are not more writers like that. I think that there are a lot of writers like Colleen Hoover start out self-publishing, but they still have in their mind this childhood dream of being published conventionally, so they do happily move over to a publishing system where the author, and I forget her name, I apologize, McFadden, I believe her last name is, who writes the Housemaid books. I think, at least at this point, she's very happy. She's probably got her own lawyer, she's got her Netflix deal and whatever for these books that are coming out, and she's very popular, and her books are priced very low compared to what an ebook of a legacy published writer like Colleen Hoover would be. Like the ebooks are probably like $9.99. McFadden's Housemaid books are like $3.99, I think, just like any self-published book. She's not interested in, she doesn't have a big she doesn't have a big building in New York that just pay rent on, that kind of thing. But I got off track. So what this guy was saying about the slush pile, there's hundreds of thousands of books rejected all the time, books that don't meet an audience, because in the past there was no publishing house that was willing to put up the money to publish them and to pay like a tiny advance to a writer, and then try and get them into bookstores and that. So what we've got now is the slush pile has moved to the internet, is the way this guy said it. So there are still the same number of books being written, and the same number of people inspired to write, and the same number of people whose books will never be read by anything but a very tiny handful of people. But what they have now is the opportunity to get their work in front of an audience through self-publishing. And I think that's a good thing. And I think people get frustrated with the self-publishing world because I'm talking from the writing perspective. It's just, you're just drowning in the sea of books, and a lot of people spend all their time marketing and writing really insincere tweets, trying to get interest into their book when all they're really interested in is writing their books. And so they get lost on these marketing traps. But they also don't have to spend the time that they used to spend, sending out queries to hundreds of agents and doing all this kind of stuff. They can just put their books out in front of an audience, and not 99% of the time, but 99.9999% of the time, they will not sell any copies, or they will sell very few copies. But bear in mind that authors who publish with Penguin Random House, a publisher everyone has heard of, half those authors also do not sell any copies, or a dozen copies. And those are probably like giveaways or something, or friends of the author. So it's always been a bad situation. I think it will continue to be a bad situation, and I hope people understand, take that into account when they write, and just keep writing as much as you want to. I have a couple of books I'm gonna write. I think a couple more I want to write. I wrote and published a bunch in the past under my own name, and some of those are still up on Amazon. They don't really sell anything, but I leave them up because I'm proud of them. I'm proud of them for what they were at the time. And I've got a couple more I want to write, or one I'm working on, and one more maybe after that. But I don't really think of it in terms of making a living or anything like that. I think of it in terms of, it's just something I want to do and put it out there. So, and fortunately we live in a time where you can put it out there, whether a publisher finds value in it or not. And that doesn't mean it's good or bad, but as any reader knows, it doesn't mean if a book is published by a real publisher that it's good or bad either. I've read a lot of turkeys. I mostly read old books, so I'm not really contributing to the well-being of any authors living today either, because I mostly read dead authors. I think that's all I wanted to say. Just think of it in terms, if you're a writer, I don't know why you'd be watching this if you are, but whether the books are being published on Amazon or just thrown up on Wattpad, or published what they call going wide on all the platforms like Kindle and Kobo and all that, these are books that you would have never gotten the chance to put in the public beforehand, because you would have sent it to the 5 or 10 publishers that exist, and they would have gotten lost in the slush pile. And then you might have kept writing them year after year, thinking this one's going to be, this one will be the one that breaks through, this one won't. But now you have the opportunity to put your own books out there, and if they do fail, to find an audience, it's really just a different way of not finding an audience, if that makes sense. All right, I think I'll stop now. This is too wandering about, but whatever. Hundreds of thousands of books are written every year. Some people will finish them. Some people will rewrite them to the degree they're able to. Some people will put them in a format, and they will polish them enough that they feel that there's something they want to share with the world. Some of those people will send them to agents. Some of those people will send them to publishers. Some of those people will publish them themselves. Some of those people, if they have more resources, will buy their own advertising. I wouldn't do that. I mean, spend your money on what you want, but the odds of success are very low. So what we're returning to is a world in which you should be writing because you want to write. And then once you finish something that you think is good enough, that meets your own standard, that you want to share with people, you have the opportunity to do that now. And I think that's an encouraging, makes this a very exciting time to be alive as a writer, as an aspiring writer. You probably won't make become the next Stephen King, because there's probably never going to be another Stephen King. There's probably never going to be a major writer that everyone reads anymore, because like with all of our media, everything's too diverse. There's billions of video games coming out. There's tons and tons of YouTube content. I have never seen a Mr. Beast video come up on my feed because I've never clicked on one. I've never searched for one. I occasionally hear people talking about him. He makes millions and millions. He gets millions and millions of views, but they don't affect my life at all. Whereas everybody who talks about Robert Howard comes right up on my feed. So we all have these little niches. That's the world we live in, where everybody's got their little subcultures and their niches. They're different varying degrees of popularity. So you'll probably never have the same 10, 15 favorite authors as someone else if you read a lot of new books. Which gives you an opportunity. You might only reach 12 people, 10 people. You might give away, a few hundred copies, and of those, 5 or 10 people will read them, or less. But so what? You just write something else. You keep writing something better until you get tired of it, or until you decide to do something else, or until you die. And I wish you good luck. Take care.